Hey guys, welcome to this tutorial. My name is ThaTimster. Today I'm going to be going over part 2 in the Project Enemy AI tutorial series. So in the last part we went ahead and we set up the cover as well as a navigation mesh and some cover points which our enemy can run to. We also set up a player to toggle whether the cover points are safe or not. And we also got the cover points here to always look towards the player. So if you haven't already watched part 1, be sure to do so you'll be up to date. But apart from that, I'm going to get straight on into this tutorial. So in the last tutorial, we went ahead and we made the script here, and basically what it does is if we move our enemy AI forwards, it goes ahead and into the console here, it goes and prints the closest object and the distance to it. So what we didn't check is whether the object, the closest one, is safe. So to do that, what we're going to do is go over here and type in and I, as in the object we're looking at, square bracket, quotation mark, and in here we want the property cover. So let's just select one of these. We want the cover here to be equal to 0. So and I cover is equal to two equal signs is equal to 0. Now let's go ahead and move our player so he's directly in front of it, and so it won't be safe. So now we'll press P, move our AI forward, and now if we go back into the console here, you can see that cover point 5 is the closest safe option. Alright, cool, so that was all we needed to do for that. So on our enemy AI, go up here, select steering, and then join those two together. Now seek here is basically like blind behavior, so it just runs straight into walls and anything in the way. However, we want to use path following so it moves around objects as well. Now this target object here will be changing depending on the surroundings, so that will leave blank. Navigation mesh object, we should already have, so nav mesh. And you can scroll in, navigation mesh. The distance here is how far it is until it starts to slow down, so I think 1 should be fine. So maybe something like 2 and 3, and then also we want it to visualize. So let's go ahead and import in this actuator here. So over here, steering is equal to cont.actuators, and then steering. Steering. Now this here will be spelled exactly the same as this over here. Now what we want to do is down here, after we've calculated everything, we want to press delete and make sure you are at the same incrementation as the for loop. So you don't want to be all the way up here, you want to be at the end and on the next line. And in here what we're going to do is basically once this has finished running, so finished looping, then we'll have our end result, and in here we want to plug that in. So to do that, we're going to type in steering dot, and then in here, hover over it, steering dot target is equal to, and then we want to assign it to distant object. So Control C to copy, Control V to paste. So let's go to the next line and cont.activate and then round bracket and steering. Alright, so now that should work. If we press P and move them forward, then there you go, it goes to the closest object. As you notice when we play the game, he gets stuck on the corner. Now there are two things you can do, either scale down this, or you can get the navigation mesh and you can go ahead and sort of scale them out and move them away. Either way, up to you. I'm going to go ahead and scale this down here, and then Control A and apply scale, and then I'm going to press P, and we'll try it again, and there we go. So you notice once he does reach this point here, that he keeps going. So what we want to do is we want to go ahead and make sure that he stops on that place and stays there. So on our enemy AI here, I'm going to go ahead and add another Python controller, and this is going to be when it collides with cover. So as you notice, all of these have the property cover on them, and they're all actors. So when it collides with cover, then what we want to do is activate another Python script. So let's go ahead and make a new one just by clicking the plus button here. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to call this set position.py. So first line, import BGE, cont is equal to bge.logic.get current controller. So either way, up to you. It's usually the same thing. So what we want to do is put it in here. So basically, when this collides with that, we want to set the world position of this to the world position of that. So what we're going to do is we will type in own.world position is equal to, and now we need another position to assign it to. So let's go ahead and import in our sensor. So collide is equal to cont.sensors collision, and then here collide dot hit object list, and then the first item. So basically what we're doing here is from the sensor we're getting a list of all the different objects that are hit, and then we're just getting the first item, which is sort of index 0. Now one more thing we have to still do is get the world position of the hit object. So let's put .world position. Alright, because before we were just setting it to the actual object, which didn't make much sense. Then that should work. Cool. And as you can see, he sort of teleported straight to his space. Now what we also want to do is we want to almost deactivate this when that does happen. So let's go ahead, join that in, cont.deactivate, and let's put steering in. So steering is equal to cont.sensors, and steering. Now, whenever you want to change an actuator or sensor or whatever, you're always going to have to import it in, like so. Alright, so steering, deactivate, steering. Alright, and we're not having sensors, we're having actuators. Now the steering actuator here will actually apply a force, so it will keep going even after we've turned it off. So as you'll notice here, if I press P, moving forward, then it'll turn off, he'll move to the position, and then it'll keep going to the next one. So what we want to also do is deactivate the dynamics, or suspend them. So line 12, we want to type in own.suspend dynamics. So this will basically mean that this here won't move anymore with any forces. Cool, so now, hopefully that should work. And there we go. Now the setting of the position we only want to happen once. So let's go over here and choose tap. So it only sends one positive pulse and then turns off. Let's check how often that is going as well by putting print. And then now if we press P, moving forward, there we go. So we'll go over in the console here, and you see it's only printed once, which means that this here has only been executed once. So now you'll notice if we go into the console here, we do have an error, and that is basically it's trying to read an empty list on the second round after you've hit the object. So after you've been your position set, it will try read the list again, but obviously there'll be nothing there. So let's put if length of collide dot hit object list is not equal to 0, then we want to execute everything else, but otherwise it should leave it alone. So maybe you can turn that off if it's a bit confusing, but otherwise that should work. So let's try it out, and there we go. So you'll notice it just ran with no errors. One thing you'll notice is that if we press play and the enemy moves to his cover and he stays there, then now the cover point here is covered. So the property cover here won't be able to change to say whether it's unsafe or not. And so now what we need to do is basically get the enemy AI to tell the cover point whether it is safe or not safe, as the ray won't be able to shoot through the enemy AI cube. So what we're going to do here is make up another Python script. Now this one is going to be called setNotSafe.py, import BGE, actually we can just copy and paste this from another script. So Control C and Control V. Oh, there we go. Alright, so now what we're going to do is select this here. So what we also need is a property here to check whether the player is in cover or not. So I guess just, oh, not player, the AI is in cover. So enemy status. So this here is going to be an integer set to 0. I guess we can select that as well. When the property, so when it is in the cover, when enemy status is equal to 1, we'll add an and we'll do an edit object and it will track to the player. There we go. This can be the delay, maybe, yeah, 2. And then also what we want to do is, on top of that, we actually want an interval. So when it's between 1, 2. So now what we need is a ray to check if it can see the player directly. And to do that, we'll type in player here and set this to, I guess, just 50. And on a true pulse, maybe every 3 or something. And then let's go over here and put that in, like so. So what we need is set not safe, and in here, ray is equal to cont.sensors ray. So if ray dot positive, then what we want to do is also get the object it is colliding with. To do that, we're going to add a collision sensor here, and it'll be for the cover point. We need to also import in our property here. So let's select all of that, Control C to copy. Next line here, and get just status is equal to own, and then paste it in. So, and status is equal to 1, so it is behind cover. And then if that is true, what we want to do is go ahead and set it to unsafe. Now, just by itself, actually using the collide here won't actually work since it has already collided. So what we're actually going to have to do is add another property in here and do last cover. So this here is going to be a string, and it's basically just going to be assigned to the last cover point that it was at. So this will make it a little bit easier for this, because we won't need that anymore. Now, to be able to set this, we're going to go over here to set position, and we're going to get this object here, collide, hit object list 0, and we're going to assign it to this, own square bracket last cover is equal to, and then collide dot hit object list, and then the first item. Cool, so now that will be here, will be set to that object, and so now if we go to the set not safe, we can print it out in here, and we won't have to use a collision sensor at all. So you can get rid of that. We'll need to replace it with last cover, which is equal to own.last cover. Alright, and in here, we'll just print it instead. Last cover, and yeah, I think that should be about it. So let's move the AI to the correct point, and trigger the ray. And so there you go, cover point 5 is the one that is currently at. Then what we're going to do is import in the scene here, which is bg.logic.getCurrentScene. Or what you could do instead is, I think own.scene might work. I'm not sure though, so let's just use scene for now. Print last cover, so what we want to do, type in cover point is equal to scene.objects, and in here we want to put in last cover. So Control C and Control V, notice no quotation marks, just by itself. So we're actually referencing this property here. And then that will go through there, and we'll select that one there. And so now cover point, and then a square bracket and quotation mark, cover, we want to set to 1, so it's unsafe. So what we have to do now is go ahead and set the status here back to 0. So now also what we want to do is go back to our find cover here and make sure that the status here is equal to 0. So Control C, and then in here and own enemy status is equal to 0. So it wants to find new cover. If we go to set not safe, if ray.positive status is equal to 1, then that will be set to 1. And also, we want to set status here is equal to 0. Now the set position here, we want to make sure that and own enemy status is equal to 0 as well. We do have some errors here. Line 12. So let's go to set not safe, line 12. Cover point, that it doesn't particularly like, so let's select all of this. Control C, put it in there directly. Let's see what the problem was. Key not in list. So that doesn't really make sense. Let's put a string around it so it's converted to a string. So you'll also notice that the enemy AI status isn't changing from 1. So what we have to do in here is, instead of own status, we actually have to type in own enemy status. That's the only way you can really change it. Alright, so you can't actually reference that, you have to reference the entire thing. So let's try that one more time, and before we do, let's go ahead and change this near thing to maybe 10 and 11 or something. So let's also set the near sensor here on a true pulse, and maybe give it 5 so it keeps refreshing. Maybe 3 should be good. So basically what's happening is that when the enemy AI collides with this cover point and it's not safe, then we're setting it to 0, but at the same time we keep setting the position back to the spot. Our set position script here, and what we also want to check is if collide.hit object list is not equal to, it's not equal to own.last cover. Now also you'll notice we've set it here, so what we need to do is press Ctrl X to cut, enter, and just put it up here. So that own last cover is assigned before this is evaluated. So let's press tab to get it to fit within the if statement. Now also at the end of the statement, let's put a semicolon to make sure that the rest is evaluated. So now if we press P, you'll notice our AI moves towards the cover point and then sits there, and we'll look at our player. However, once the ray hits, then the AI here will actually sort of get stuck and won't be able to do anything. However, the reason that it's not working is because the dynamics are still suspended. So if we go over here to the set not safe, and at the end of it we restore the dynamics, so own.restore dynamics, and then 2 round brackets. Now you'll notice if we do that, and then we go through the whole thing it was in before, it will start glitching. And the reason for that is that the cover points here are actually within the ground itself. So to make sure that the rest of the level stays consistent, let's quickly go ahead and just select all the cover points. And, oops, not the navigation mesh, just the cover points here. And what we're going to do is slightly move them upwards off the ground so our player won't glitch. So go back into texture mode and let's move them up here. Okay, again the size of this here is going to determine how far up these need to be. So right here, if I press P, you have it basically set up. Go to the right spawn, look at the player, and then now it's going to enter some sort of glitch phase where the enemy status is just flickering between 0 and 1. And the reason for that is this here is being just continuously set to the same spot. And the reason for that is over here we're not actually checking whether the point is safe or not. So if we type in and collide.hit object list, the first item, and then within that, there's another square bracket, we want to check that the property cover is equal to 0, so it is safe. And so now if we press P, it'll go to that one, and if the player enters it, it'll go to another one. So there we go guys, that's the end of this tutorial. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, let me know with a like, comment, or share down below. Again, working with AI is super frustrating and can just be a huge pain when stuff doesn't work and states are all over the place. Hopefully in next tutorial we'll get into doing the states, maybe we'll apply them here. So we don't have to have so many different properties. But again, hope you guys enjoyed it, have an awesome week, and I'll see you guys in the next video.